Believe it or not, on to episode 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. David Foote here. Joel Vanderlaan is back in studio-ish. We're back at the office. Joel's here in person, and as promised, because we always deliver on our promises here on the Belleville Sens podcast, Garrett Harvey with us today for the whole show, not just for Get to Know Your FO, which will come up later on in the program. Hey, G, what's up?
Thank you very much. Yeah, not much. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you were hand-selected, so it wasn't our choice.
Oh,
but
well,
we're glad you're here.
Thanks to Alex Smith, I guess, for throwing me a bone out here.
Yeah, and Garrett, later on in the program, when we get to know your FO, will choose the next victim to sit in on the Belleville Sens podcast. But as we do every week, even though we don't really maybe want to this week, we have to look back on the weekend that was, and the week that was, I suppose, because as of release, it's been about a week since Belleville's last win. They kicked off a 3-game road trip with a 3-2 overtime victory in Laval. Kevin Mandolese, the Montreal native, making 33 saves that night. A Scott Sabourin overtime winner, and coming off a homestand that did not go well. It was a bright spot. I think there was a little bit of optimism around the club after the OT win.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, Belleville was in need of a win, and they got a big win against a division rival. And anytime you collect points, especially in that building in a raucous Place Bell, things are gonna be moving towards the right direction, hopefully. In this case, maybe not so much, but Scott Sabourin continues his season, scoring his 14th of the year after Jacob Larson made a nice feed to him in the crease there, and he was able to connect to win the hockey game. And like you mentioned, Kevin Mandolese always plays well against the Rocket, and once again he shone through and even earned an NHL call-up after that game.
Yeah, he did. He came back a day later, but did get a call-up, just enough time to throw a little bit more chaos into the lineup. And Belleville going into Springfield on Friday without their number 1 goaltender, without their number 2 goaltender, without their number 3 goaltender, and their number 4 goaltender ends up backing up Luke Parasini, I guess he goes by Luke, but Luke Parasini, who didn't fare well, didn't start off great, and Sens end up losing Friday 5-1. Logan Flodell comes in relief and plays well enough to keep the Sens in the game, but as will be the main topic of discussion from Game 2, special teams played a big part in things.
Yeah, and the Belleville Sens just weren't able to catch up to the Springfield Thunderbirds after they kind of, like you mentioned, got 3 past Luke Parasini in the first period and kind of walked through the rest of the game, kind of building off that early momentum. And Logan Flodell, like you mentioned, 23 stops on the night, so good for him to get his confidence back, and it helped keep Belleville within striking distance at times of that game. And at the end, it just the power play wasn't clicking, and the Springfield building off that early lead in a tough building, it's always going to be tough to come back.
Garrett Harvey's here as well. He works on game presentation and video production and things like that, so he liked to peek in on what's happening in other buildings. How did you feel about the 15 fire trucks on the ice in Springfield with sirens blaring for 8 minutes? Were you glad you didn't have to be a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, that to me is a logistical nightmare, so my hat's off to the folks in Springfield for executing that, but I can't imagine having to do that and how many hoops you have to jump through, especially for us because we are a city building. I'd imagine they would not be too thrilled to have that many vehicles on the ice.
Yeah, I was impressed by the amount of people they get on the ice. I talked about it a little bit on the broadcast, but pregame they've got one of those fan bonies that drives people around, and then they had all those cars on at that intermission. They always parade people around the ice to throw T-shirts out. They're not afraid to put people on the ice. At the same time, the ice did not look great at times there, and that's one of the reasons why we don't do that. I think we have good ice here.
And that's the thing you hear from so many people, too, around the league, that the facilities that we have, shout out to the city staff.
Yeah, City of Belleville represent.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's league known, but it's definitely what I hear some of the best ice.
Yeah, absolutely. That was maybe the brightest spot of the weekend. Springfield was the neat promotions that they ran because the games didn't go well. 5-1 loss Friday, 6-1 loss on Saturday, and only scored twice, one in overtime on Wednesday as well. The offense is not going right now, Joel, and we got bodies back too. Roby Arvente came back last week. Lassie Thompson, who does play on the back end, came back last week, but no spark offensively right now.
No, and not much of a spark like you mentioned, but I think when you're dealing with so many injuries in net as well, you got to put that extra focus on defending, and that takes a little bit away from the overall offense and the overall jumping up in the rush and attacking. And then obviously Saturday night they took 10 penalties. Mm-hmm. Springfield Thunderbirds had 10 power play opportunities, for which, when you're not getting into the flow of the game and you're killing penalties and you're constantly defending, you're just not going to be able to play as freely and get that kind of flow that you need in your game to get the offense going, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, the special teams, all in all, not great. 7 power plays, 4 on Friday. Couldn't score. 10 power plays against on Saturday. Gave up 4. Plus gave up a 10th shorty on the season over the week. Is it as frustrating to watch from home as it is when you're there?
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine it's frustrating for the players too. I mean,
yeah.
Like you said, the chaos in the lineups, you never know who's going to go up, who's staying around. I can't imagine what it's like for them to get into those systems, and especially when you say the special teams.
And we're like the three of us specifically, like we're around the guys a lot. We see how hard they work and how much effort they're putting in. Like it's not like they show up at the rink every day and are coasting through practice. Like Troy Mann won't let that happen, first of all. But they're working hard and they're not getting results, and it's a frustrating thing to have to sit back and watch and be a part of. But what is it, as like time through the hourglass? These are the days of our lives, something like that. It's just the way it goes, right? At the end of the day. So, and you know, we'll look ahead to next week in segment number 2, but there is some optimism on the horizon. I think, again, you look at the North Division standings now after the week, and Belleville back in the basement in 7th place, but as we talked about on earlier episodes of the show, lots of divisional play still to come, and including a couple games with Rochester this week, who you're only 7 points behind. So 2 wins against the Amherst this week, and you're starting to climb the table a little bit. Plus, you get the All-Star break coming up, which I know the guys are excited for. So, as are we, to be frank. But time to empty the tank for 2 more games, and there is some light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, is the point I'm trying to get back to.
Oh, yeah, it's all still in front of them. Like you mentioned, the standings are so tight, and especially with all the divisional play, and you got Laval coming in here for 3 on Family Day weekend, Rochester twice this weekend. You string together a little streak, and you're back in a playoff spot, and you're sitting pretty. Guys are getting healthy. The team is overall, I think, in a good mood, in a good positive spirit. I just came back from a school visit with Igor Sokolov and Brendan Saulnier. Both guys really good spirits, really happy to go and meet some young fans as well. So I think overall this team is not giving up, not pouting, not feeling down on themselves. So with all this divisional play, with guys getting healthy, surely they can get back in this thing. And I think the biggest thing is staying positive, which they are.
Let's take a quick look at the club's statistical leaders again after another week. Scott Sabourin, believe it or not, tied with Rourke Chartier for the team leading goals. And I saw a little bit of discourse on Twitter throughout the course of the week from people who maybe didn't believe it. But we've said it before on the broadcast on this program, I'm sure, in its early days here. But Scott Sabourin has way more skill than people give him credit for. And some people might be surprised to see him leading the team in goals. I, for one, am not. Are you guys?
No, Scott's a beauty. I mean, he... I think we've said it before, but he'll answer the bell with his fists or with his stick on the ice. I mean, he's such a great player and such a great asset for this team, both skill and leadership.
Yeah, and such a nice dude as well. Like, so happy, always happy to meet a fan or sign an autograph. Joel mentioned the school visits. We had our all-in program winners, the U11 Belleville Bearcats, in for a locker room tour this week, and the whole team was here. Everybody was out, and yeah, like you said, Joel, good spirits. Just happy to have the kids around, and you know, a chance to realize that, you know, life is bigger than hockey, and it's nice to be able to you know, impart some words of wisdom and things of that nature on the youth. So that's great. Igor Sokolov still the assisted points leader overall. Chartier and Cruikshank still tied with 7 power play goals. Jacob Bernard-Docker is +7, which is outstanding for him. And you want the opposite to that. Angus Cruikshank is a team leading -23. Troy Mann said this to the all-in team the other night. He said, what was he? He's like, he's got 23 points, but he's also -23. He's got to be the only guy in the league to be like that. But he said he's also an avid golfer. Maybe that's why he's -23. He likes the look of the number. So
hey, he's getting his points on the power play.
That's right. At least the coach can have a sense of humor with a guy like that. Antoine Bibeau, 6 wins. He still leads that category, and then Mads Sogard still has the team's best goals against and save percentage, despite Joel getting called back up to Ottawa again. He'd been out for a couple of weeks. He ends up playing in what I'm going to call an emergency basis on Saturday. And then Sunday, he's up. Kevin Vanderlaan is back down, and Ottawa's got their top goaltending prospect in the NHL again.
Yeah, he's the goalie of the future, and you can see the organization's extremely high on him. And when you watch him play, and when he gets into his rhythm and when he's healthy, you can see just why they are. And such a big, technically sound goalie, so good moving athletically post to post. And when he's on, not too many guys can beat him. So glad to see him back in the NHL.
Again, that's one of the many transactions this week. The Sens also released Joe Carroll. Kevin Mandelaze went up and down. Jacob Larson went up and down. But right now, Mads Sogard, the only one who's up. Everybody else down, almost getting healthy. We'll do a bit of an injury update here when we return and when we get set to preview the upcoming week as the Belleville Sens play 2 crucial games against the Rochester Americans. A couple pretty big promos happening at CAA Arena as well this week, so we'll get you all the details on that. Episode 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast continues on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. Grabs that, it's Chartier the other way. Drops it back to Larson. Larson cuts to his left, feeds it in front, scores! Scott Sabourin has the overtime winner! The Sens come back and beat the Rocket 2-1. And that was the bright spot for the Belleville Sens last week. As we mentioned back in segment 1, episode 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast continues from our makeshift boardroom studio here at the Belleville Sens headquarters at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. David Foote, Joel Vanderlaan, Garrett Harvey from the Sens marketing, video production, game presentation, all the departments. We'll get the full rundown of Garrett's roles and responsibilities coming up in segment 3 with Get to Know Your FO. So I hope you have some time because he does a lot of things around here. So we'll get ready for that. For now, though, let's preview the week ahead. And having Garrett here is actually kind of handy this week because there's lots going on in terms of game presentation and promotions at CAA Arena this week. The opponents are easy to break down, Joel. It's the Rochester Americans. I guess opponent is easy to break down. It's a team that the Sens have seen a few times this season already, and a team that they're chasing in the standings. So these are important games heading into the All-Star break.
They really are, and a little bit of a bright spot with Rochester is they're struggling as well. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10, but also in their last 10 away from Blue Cross, they put up some good numbers, 6-3-1. So they're a team the Sens know well. They're a team that always has kind of been a thorn in their side a little bit, dating back to the playoffs, and some good battles with them. They're well coached. Seth Appert, one of the best younger coaches in the American Hockey League, and him and Troy definitely have some systematic battles as they go through their rivalry as well. So a team that Belleville knows well, a team that Belleville has beat this year. And a team that...
Couple times.
Yeah, so I think from that kind of standpoint, having them here for two at home, Troy Mann and his club have to start to think, hey, we beat this team a couple times, like you mentioned. We can beat them a couple more times, especially with them coming in with their own struggles.
And the last time they played, the last time Belleville beat Rochester as well, pretty handily too, 5-1 on the road. The other games have been a little bit closer, 4-3 in overtime. Rochester won in Rochester on October 19th. The Sens countered on November 12th with a shootout win on home ice, and then Rochester winning on December 30th, and the Sens, as just mentioned, on January 4th. It's always, it seems tight when those two teams play. But they do kind of a clashing styles a little bit. Rochester kind of plays that Toronto-esque and even Springfield-esque kind of run and gun transition game, whereas the Senators are a physical, get in your face, forecheck and grind out goals type of club. And both teams have decent goaltending when it's on as well. Rochester with nobody in the top 20 in scoring or on the goaltending side, but as a team, they're pretty solid. And as you mentioned, they've been tough to beat at times.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. When you look at their team, it's just deep. They got good goaltending depth. Malcolm Subban's a very good goaltender. And you look at Brendan Byro, I think he's got 70 points his last 79 American Hockey League games. He drives the boat for them. Vinny Hennestroz is down from the Buffalo Sabres. A lot of NHL experience he brings to that lineup. Andres Bork's played a lot of NHL hockey too. So they're a deep team. They know how to play to their identity, much like the Belleville Senators with Scott Sabrin, Rourke Chartier, Jake Lucchini all back in the lineup now for the Sens. So it's going to be good to see these teams kind of at full strength against each other because we haven't really seen that much this season as well.
Yeah, and as was not the case earlier on in the season, all of Rochester's top players are in the lineup and available, not up and down. They had some injury issues that they battled as well. And they're going to provide a tough opponent. Again, Thursday night and Saturday night at 7 p.m., 7:05 puck drop here at CAA Arena. But you're going to want to get here early for both games this weekend because we've got two really good promotions happening. One is a little more, let's say, fun. The other one, perhaps a little bit more, it's going to be equally as fun, but maybe a little more educational as well. Starting with 80s Retro Night on Thursday, sponsored by our friends over at Hits 95.5 FM. We're going to take it back in time for a night.
Yeah, super exciting. I think this has kind of become a bit of an annual event for us, the 80s Night. So we're going to be turning back the dial on decades for, we got DJ GQ, he's playing nothing but 80s tunes. And we've got some fun games lined up with 95.5 for your chance to win some pretty cool Belleville Sens experiences, as well as a costume contest. So
yeah.
For all of our listeners there, make sure you dust off the neon windbreakers and the shoulder pads and get out here with some cool costumes.
Yeah, if you're the type that doesn't love all the new music that gets played at hockey games, this is the one for you because GQ has loaded the playlist top to bottom with 80s bangers. So at least that's what he says. I assume that's the case. So
it better be.
It better be. Or else, if you're a DJ, no, I'm just kidding. GQ, it's fine. DJ GQ does a fantastic job for us. But yeah, he'll be spinning the tunes. We'll have some 80s theming. Garrett mentioned the costume contest. So yeah, if you are of the generation, or even if you're not, and you can get a nice 80s costume together. We'll do a fan vote. Is that how we're running the contest?
Yeah, we'll do it late in the third, so the promo crew will be roaming the arena all game, and they'll be scouting out the favorites, if you will, and then we'll have a live hit with our top three, and do it a fan vote, so the loudest cheer gets to go home with the prize.
Love it. 80s night happening on Thursday. That's going to be fun. And then Saturday night, and I know on the press release I said Friday. I was very confused because who plays games on Thursday nights? Not us.
Not us.
Apparently we do now, but we've got Indigenous Communities Night, and this is it's not just a promotion. It is an opportunity to, I guess, learn a little bit more about our neighbors just 10 minutes down the road on the Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. They'll have a heavy influence on what's happening, and obviously a discussion that has to be had and talked about, and we're really excited to do this. A lot of work has gone into this promo night. Not that we don't put work into the other ones, but there's been a lot of added focus on making sure this one is done right, and that I think people will actually gain something from attending the game and going through the experience.
Yeah, for sure. We've been working very closely with some key representatives in that community, and it's something that's been we've wanted to do as a team for a while, but you have to make sure you do these kind of things right, and with the right reasons and the right intentions in mind. So going into this, it's been a good focus of how best to execute this night. So we've got some great activations, some great presentations going on from members of the Mohawk community. We've got a vendor market with some local Indigenous business people and artisans and craftspeople. So they'll be spread out across the concourse for the duration of the game. So another good reason to get in through the gates early, so you can check out their wares, I guess, what they have for sale. There's some jewelry, leather work, fur work, artists with full paintings, things like that. We've got a special pregame ceremony, so there's a traditional song that they're going to be singing before anthems, a puck drop with Callie Hill from the TTO language school on the territory, as well as Chief Ardon Miracle will be joining in as well as a t-shirt sale. So local artist Corey Parkin designed 2 logos. Hopefully you've seen them on our socials.
And if you haven't, head there now and check them out.
Yeah.
Because they're fantastic, and Corey's done an excellent job for us and a lot of other pro teams. He did some work for the Blue Jays, the Argos. He's making a name for himself, and it's cool to have him right down the street.
Yeah, so he designed 2 logos. He did a rendition of our main B, and as well as the secondary city skyline shoulder patch, if you will. So they both look great. We've got them on t-shirts. Buy one, buy both if you so choose. And all the proceeds will be going back to the TTO language school project out on the territory, which highlights preserving the Mohawk language through education with the children out there. And we've got a bunch of different other activations going on. We had some hockey terms translated into Mohawk with their meanings, their definitions, just to give people a little bit more of an understanding and an education of that language. So yeah, it's something that I'm really excited about. I know a lot of the other people in the office and stakeholders in our community are very excited about it as well. And something that I hope we can continue years to come.
Yeah, and maybe grow on next year. There were some people asking, hey, are you guys going to do an Indigenous jersey? Because I've seen some other teams around the league do them. And let's just say this, it's on the radar. And if this weekend goes well, we're getting into that time where we got to decide, a little inside baseball on what we're going to do next year for specialty jerseys. And I think that's got to be right up there on the list. I think the T-shirt sales are going pretty well already. Those T-shirts are on sale via the Sens auctions page. You can find that right from our homepage at BellevilleSens.com. Scroll through the little slider on the top of the page and click that link, and you can buy a T-shirt for $15. As Garrett said, we're supporting the TTO language school on the Tyndonega Mohawk territory, so a portion of the proceeds will go to the language school to help fund their programs for all generations, really. They do adult programs, kids, preschool programs even, trying to keep the Mohawk language alive. Obviously, the artist, Corey Parkin's going to get a portion of the proceeds as well. So those are on sale now. Again, just head to BellevilleSens.com, scroll through the slider, and find our, it should be the second one on there, the Indigenous Communities Night banner. And you can buy the tickets for the game as well, and buy a T-shirt too. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited to see how everything comes together. We were in Winnipeg, what feels like forever ago, but it was only about a month. And we've been doing a land acknowledgement all season long, and Winnipeg's got a real flashy one with their on-ice projectors that looks really cool. But to be able to take just a little bit of extra time to acknowledge the people who have lived on this land for centuries, it's going to be it's going to be a big night, and we're really looking forward to it. So that's on Saturday, February 4th, against the Rochester Americans. Thursday, February 2nd, is 80s night. Again, a little less educational, a little more party, perhaps. Depends on how you saw the 80s. I think most people saw the 80s as a
I did
a
not
party.
see the 80s.
You didn't see the 80s. No. Joel did. I saw 3 years of the 80s, and I don't remember it. So,
well,
except for some of my outfits, which I don't think I can dig out to wear.
You can try.
But I can try.
You might win a costume contest.
There might be a hat that'll fit me. We'll have to see. But tickets are available at BellevilleSens.com and Ticketmaster.ca for both of those games before the All-Star break. And then after that, we're away for about a week or so. I've got the All-Star break where Igor Sokolov will go to Laval. Then we're in Cleveland, and then we come back home after that. So last chance to see the guys for a couple weeks is this Thursday and Saturday, and you can help out a good cause as well on Saturday with Indigenous Communities Night as the Sens play a couple of crucial games against the Rochester Americans. Tickets, once more, Ticketmaster.ca, BellevilleSens.com. We'll head into segment number 3 with Get to Know Your Front Office, Get to Know Your FO with Garrett Harvey. We'll dive a little bit deeper into his role and what kind of stuff he has the responsibility of making work every game day that you might not realize somebody is actually doing. We'll explain when we come back on episode 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. Final segment of episode 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Now available pretty well everywhere. You can get your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, if you're the Stitcher type. And, of course, we'd ask that you rate and review the podcast. That'll help us out as we try to build and grow the Belleville Sens podcast and try to reach more Sens fans in general. Not just Belleville Sens fans in general, all over the globe, wherever they may live. You'd be surprised. We get some emails from people overseas saying, I love the Senators, like I want to come see you guys play, or send me some stuff. And we do every once in a while. So, yeah, that's why we're here, to keep Sens fans happy and informed on this show. Time for a bit of a lesson in, how do I put this? A lesson in jumping into new career paths and how you can always be surprised by what you may end up doing. The fun part for you, G, is that this is kind of leaned into like what your wheelhouse is, which is television production. You went to the Loyalist College.
The Loyalist College.
For television production.
The fun and only, if you will.
That's right. Yeah. And that wasn't what you were doing after school.
No, so I went to school, Loyalist College, television film production. Just kind of on a whim. It was something that I guess discovered in high school through like Comtech, if anybody has Comtech in their high school, and realized, hey, this is a job. People get paid to make TV and movies. That's pretty cool. So I went into that and loved the program. At the time it was a 3-year advanced diploma. So all 3 years, just absolutely loved it. Came out of it not really knowing what to do. Obviously, Belleville's not really known for its bustling film and television industry.
It's true. Yeah.
At least at that time.
They do hold a decent summer film fest.
They do, yeah. It is getting better, I will say. But at the time, Toronto was really the closest market, and my sister lived there. Still does. So tried to move it out there, but unfortunately nothing was really going my way. So I decided to expand on the resume a little bit, went back to school for public relations and event management, again at Loyalist College. That was a 1-year post-grad certificate. And I did come out of that with a job more, I guess, geared to both of those industries, I guess, in real estate marketing. I was a junior editor, media specialist. I was editing the videos that you see of houses that realtors use.
Yeah, the ones they use to entice you to buy homes that nobody can afford.
Exactly, yeah. So obviously it was good business because there's tons of homes.
Because somebody actually can't afford that.
Yeah. Just not me.
Nor
so, so that was good. Unfortunately, obviously, it's real estate is a cyclical market. And
That means it goes in a cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Like recycling. So unfortunately, once the boom faded in the summer, I did get laid off from there. There wasn't enough business to keep me around. So I ended up, I was serving at the same time during that summer. I was a server at Midtown Brewery in the county, no free ads. But there it is.
But it is delicious.
But it is delicious. It's great. And again, cyclical business, being in the county, tourism, whatnot. So I ended up finding a part-time job here at the Belleville Senators in the production crew. And I really enjoyed it there. Started to see kind of behind the scenes, peek behind the curtain. And from there I kind of realized, hey, wouldn't it be cool to work full-time for these guys? And I started putting my feelers out, talking to the front office staff at the time, saying, this is what I want to do, how do I get to there? And making the right steps, I'd think, and then all of a sudden, global pandemic shut everything down.
Yeah, that whole thing.
If you recall. I don't know if you remember, so long ago.
Stretch my brain.
Yeah. And then again, at the same time, I was working at a bank as a teller. So I think I had about 3 or 4 jobs, all part-time, all at once. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
And still probably not taking up as much time as this one job does now, right?
It'd be close. It'd be close.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started to work there at the bank more and more. It was comfortable. It was safe. Through a global pandemic, you're behind a glass shield all day. Not relatively hard to do that. So started thinking maybe of a career that way into the financial realm. I took a job a step further and went into financial advising. Realized I don't really enjoy sales and advising people's finances. So when the opportunity came to come back to work here at the Belleville Sens part-time last season, I said yes, but if there's anything full-time, let me know. And funny enough, but it was actually your job that I wanted to apply for, because that was the one that was on Indeed at the time. And then it was very quickly not on Indeed, and I was like, darn it. But luckily there was another job that came up, marketing coordinator. So I jumped on that and had some help on the inside and got hired on there into a whole new world that I never really thought would be my job. So basically what Alex Smith, guest 1 of the podcast.
And co-host B.
Co-host B, yeah. That was basically my job last season. So doing all the scheduling of the tweets, the marketing emails, as well as game presentation. So thank God that he was hired on.
We are happy to have him.
Yes, 100%. He does great work. He does better graphics and things like that than I ever did. So.
For sure.
Yeah. I'll admit that.
And I'll say that to your face.
Yeah, and I'll accept that to my face. So yeah, now I'm more, like you said, more in my wheelhouse of doing game presentation, which is very similar to studio work, live television kind of thing that way, as well as video production work for the team.
Chatting with Garrett Harvey, who does all those things for the Belleville Senators here. You are, you're in charge of doing kind of the extended videos that you'll see on social media and basically running the game presentation. I say this, you say this when I worked in TV more as well, like people flick the TV on or people show up to a game and I don't think some people just think it happens and it just shows up on your screen and that's just the way it goes. But there's so much work that goes into even just putting on a hockey game. If you think about just the scoreboard as one element of a game day, all the graphics that go up there have to be built. All the videos that go up there have to be produced and loaded in, and et cetera, et cetera. And that again is just one section of the whole thing. What's been the biggest challenge, I guess, about wrapping your head around the new role?
I think the biggest challenge was inheriting the control room. So if you ever walked around CAA Arena and seen the no authorized staff only sign on a door, that's probably the control room. A lot of people try to go in there to use the washroom, but it's not a washroom.
We discourage that. Yeah.
Please don't. So inheriting that room, obviously somebody else built it 5-6 years ago. And that comes obviously with some problems that they probably knew the solution to, the kinks, the nuances of that equipment. So when you come into that with little to no training, and that's a fault to nobody because there was nobody, that was probably the biggest challenge of figuring out how to make this stuff work, who to contact, who to call if it stops working, which happens more often than not sometimes. But I think we got it all figured out.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest learning curve in that world was relearning basically all the things in school that I thought I would never ever use. But
Well, and you got thrown into almost more of a tech, not tech support, but kind of like the broadcast engineering side, which in school is a completely different focus, completely different course from just television and film production. So there was a lot of stuff I'm sure that you were learning, maybe you'd heard of, but doing for sure for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the upgrades that we did in the off season, obviously, like I said, a lot of outdated stuff. So upgrading it was a big hurdle this season too. But I think it's finally all done, and it makes a big difference, obviously.
Yeah, and again, maybe it's not a difference that people will necessarily see or notice other than...
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say obviously because the only time you might notice it is when it stops working.
Yeah, or a new camera or something like that, because we got some new cameras.
Makes me excited, but to the average fan, it might just be like business as usual.
Yeah, nerd.
Yeah, nerd alert.
Yeah, and then I guess running the control room, it's not just you. You have, I think you said you had 40 part-time staff under you, and kind of helping these students. Most of them are interning or learning kind of the things that you went through when you were in school. How do you kind of help these people to gain the valuable experience they need, but also keep it running like a professional organization should?
Yeah, so the 40 staff under me, breaking into 3 crews. We have our ice crews, so those are the most visible probably. They come out 3 times a period and shovel the ice.
The alarm system sirens?
That's correct, Yep. The promo crew, you might see those people kind of operating in the background, making sure the games run well, the t-shirt tosses, pumping up the fans, things like that. And then the production crew, which is about, on one game day, there's probably about 12 people that need to be in there to make the show run. And I think the most exciting thing for that is giving them that opportunity to learn real world things. And I think a lot of them come in and say, "Oh, it's Belleville, it's not Toronto, it's not Vancouver, it's not Montreal, the quote unquote meccas of the industry." But I tell them all the time, this is your path to get to working Leafs games. This is your path to getting to work
or
NFL
Senators games.
Or Senators games, yeah. Because it's one step there, and it's easy to translate to the Leafs because it's MLSE. You work for the Sens, that's AHL. That's one hop over to the Marlies, and then you're in the pros.
And to be fair, and we even saw this when we hosted the NHL game and Sportsnet brought their truck in. Like a control room at the end of the day is a control room.
Exactly.
You're going to go into another rink, another studio somewhere else, and the equipment's going to be the same. So at the end of the day, what's smaller building fan-wise, big deal. Like you still get that firsthand experience in what you said earlier is a small industry, especially here in the Bay of Quinte region. So I think it's great that we're able to offer that kind of opportunity to people here in town to be able to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and other than that, it's Cogeco, and not Cogeco. It's a world-class operation they have going on there. But when you've only got 2 teams to cover, and their season's much shorter than ours, and it's volunteer. So here you're getting a bit more repetitions at it, and you're getting paid to do it, which is something I'm a proponent of, is paying people for their time.
Which is that's so admirable of you in this day and age.
I tip my cap to the Senators
for actually paying their people. Yeah. Thank you, guys. We'll take a few more minutes here with Senior Coordinator Content Marketing, Garrett Harvey. I had to pull it up. Has that changed?
It's content and game presentation.
Oh, okay. Who updates the web? Oh, that's me. Okay. I will make that change immediately, and we can move forward. What's the best part of your job? What do you enjoy the most?
I think the best part of my job is a bit twofold. It's on one hand, it's something different every day. I do have experience in that sales finances role where it's it's the same number. Sure, you're doing, a different mortgage or investments or something like that, but it's all very repetitive. Whereas here, one day, like you said, maybe I'm tagging along for a school visit, or maybe we've got a minor hockey team coming to do a dressing room tour, or maybe I'm going on the road and experiencing something else. Or so it's always something different, which was something very big and very important to me in a career. And then on the other hand, it's just exciting to be one of those lucky few to work in professional sports. You can count how many professional sports teams there are in Canada and North America. I'm in a working group with all the other game presentation people in the AHL. There's 32 of me.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the lucky people in all of North America and beyond that get to work one of those 32 roles in North America. So it's humbling. So when you're in the trenches like we are kind of right now, midway through the season, and the days aren't getting any longer.
Yeah. Team's struggling a little bit.
Just to take a step back and remember like how lucky you are to be in the position you are in, to make those differences for like the part-time staff, the community organizations that we get to support in our promo nights,
and the fans.
And the fans,
for me, like there's always that kind of payoff at the end of the game, end of the show, where that you've given somebody hopefully something entertaining to take their time up, and hopefully they've enjoyed it and will want to come back. For you especially, that's a big thing here, right? You want to make people want to come back and support this team.
And that was last season. To put a face to a name, some people might remember me as the fill-in host, the interim host.
Yes, that's right.
Hearing the crowd go nuts after a big goal, or we're on power play and it's just about to start, that's huge. Hearing that happen and putting the smiles on the kids' faces, it's always a feel-good moment.
And I guess just through this whole process, you've been here 2 years now. Is there any advice or anything that you kind of learned that's kind of stuck with you as you kind of develop still early in your career and kind of move forward here with this organization?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I would have is just never say no. There were so many times last year when I was just getting started in my role that I could have said, no, sorry, that's not my job, that's not my department. But to step up to those new challenges, it's always going to give you a teachable moment, and it's just more experience for you. And you never know where it's going to lead. Obviously, my path, my road to the AHL, if you will, it was not linear. And all of those little experiences that might not seem relevant, like financial advising, working at a bank, that's really, so Brianne Matthews says, that's what got me my job, was that experience in an office setting like that. So yeah, if you're newly graduated or whatever it may be, and you're kind of thinking, how does this get me to there? There's always parallels. So just never say no and take every opportunity with an open mind.
Some sage words. Is that the right word?
I try to be wise when I can.
Yeah. Well, you've got the beard, so
especially when I'm mic'd up,
yeah.
I have to be a good boy.
Yeah. No, and we appreciate you reining it in, so to speak. We'll have to. We've been talking about the Belleville Sens podcast After Dark.
After Dark. Oh,
it's
put the little.
If the characters of this show develop the way that we hope they will, maybe there will be some room for that at some point moving forward. We'll have to see. Garrett Harvey is the Senior Coordinator, Content and Game Presentation with the Belleville Senators. And as has become tradition on the show, you get to pick who's next from the front office. Who do you want us to chat with next week?
I mean, it doesn't make sense to the viewers or the listeners, I guess, because they don't know the layout of the office. But so far, we've kind of gone in a line. I think we're going to have to get Marie Pinot.
Oh, Marie, you're up next.
Yeah, Marie, you're up next. Sorry.
That will be episode 4 next week as the Belleville Sens podcast rolls on. Again, 2 games this week. The Rochester Americans are here Thursday for 80s Night presented by Hits 95.5 FM. Saturday, again, the Amherst for Indigenous Communities Night. And those T-shirts supporting the Mohawk Language School are available via Dash Auctions or BellevilleSens.com. You can also get tickets at BellevilleSens.com and Ticketmaster.ca. We hope to see you at the rink this week. Thanks again for the time, G. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Awesome.
Absolutely. That's Garrett Harvey, Joel Vanderlaan, as always. We'll see you in the booth this week.
Yep. Thursday.
Perfect. And you can read all of Joel's hard work at BellevilleSens.com throughout the weekend. With that, David Foote thanking you for listening. We'll talk to you next week on episode 4 of the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.